Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns, and it is such a delight to be back with you again, and I hope that everyone is enjoying a happy Mardi Gras season. Today it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you a gentleman that has been, let's say, put through the ringer in terms of contractual work that he did in the aftermath of Hurricane Rita. His name is Billy Broussard. This gentleman had the misfortune of doing quite a bit of debris-related cleanup at the Indian Bayou project. It's part of the Gravity District and Drainage District 8 in Calcasieu Parish. Unfortunately, Mr. Broussard got into a situation where he removed quite a bit of debris, which he felt would be likely ineligible for FEMA reimbursement. But he was assured, at least according to him, and he'll be speaking with you here in just a moment, that he would in fact be remunerated for having removed that debris. And obviously we're not talking about a very small amount of debris. We're talking about an awful lot of debris that had been in there for some time, and that brings in the term of sinker logs. They're basically waterlogged logs that have been down there for tens of years, decades literally, and obviously FEMA would have said, hey, that's not a result of the hurricane. That was the responsibility of the individual gravity drainage districts, and they were derelict in that regard, and that may have aggravated the flooding more so. That may be the case even in the most recent flooding that we had in East Baton Rouge Parish. But what basically happened is after he did all of this work, despite what he will say is that the local representatives assured him that he would be compensated for all of his work, and it turned out that he was not. Now, I will just say this, Mr. Broussard did take his case through the district court level. He also went through the State Court of Appeals and even went to the Supreme Court. However, and he lost in each of those, and make no bones about it, we give you full disclosure. But Mr. Broussard is contending that there is now significant information that he did not have and was not privy to at the time that he initiated the litigation. And that's what we're going to focus on today. And that's where we're really going to put all of the focus today. Mr. Broussard is alleging that he ran into stiff, and I do mean stiff, opposition from two attorneys, namely Rusty Stutes, who serves as the attorney for the Gravity District Drainage, District 8, and also Mr. Gabb, Sam Gabb, I believe is the first name, Sam, who also gave him a little bit of opposition, or more than just a little bit. But I really want to focus in on Mr. Stutes, although Mr. Gabb was also a representative in early 2015. Basically, as Mr. Broussard attempted to get this information, it did not sit over very well with Mr. Stutes. And I believe the date here is January the 16th of 2014, Mr. Stutes fired off an email to Mr. Broussard in which he said that you have committed fraud. And if you keep it up, if you keep asking for the public documents, and we got it highlighted right here, Mr. Stutes' wording, I may be forced to turn this information over to the FBI. It's your call. And I want to make sure that gets focused in on the camera, because I would submit to you, if Mr. Stutes has evidence that Mr. Broussard committed fraud as an officer of the court, he is duty bound to submit that evidence to the FBI, irrespective of Mr. Broussard's request for public information. Thereafter, Mr. Stutes followed that up as Mr. Broussard continued his quest for trying to get to the bottom of what all happened here. Some of which involved state police investigative matters. And we're going to give you a video for Mr. Carl Patterson, who was interviewed by Louisiana State Police. I think you'll find his interview quite revealing. It is somewhat lengthy, but this is a former employee of that agency, and I think it's going to be well worth the time it will take you to review that. But let me get to the second instance of Mr. Stutes firing off, and that was on February the 16th. Of 2015, and he fired off a letter, once again reiterating, finally, this is his last bit of threat. He's also made several other threats against Mr. Broussard in his quest for public information. We're going to give you a link both to this email and to this letter. Now, this letter, as I said, is dated February 16, 2015. I'll take just a moment to hold it in front of the camera, give you a little bit of time to read the highlighted text, and then I'm going to read it. Finally, we will contact the FBI and provide them with all fraudulent documents and sworn testimony obtained during the course of this litigation. So that will give you the kind of the introduction. I'm now going to turn the floor over to Mr. Broussard to elaborate a little further. And today is meant to primarily serve as an introduction to this gentleman, because it's going to take me quite a little bit of digging. I served 5 years as a fraud examiner for the FDIC, but I can tell you this is one of the most complex, convoluted cases that I've ever encountered, and getting to the bottom of what actually happened is going to take a little bit of time. But I wanted to briefly introduce you today, get you acclimated to Mr. Broussard, and let you know the kind of hell that he has been put through in terms of obtaining these documents which he seeks. So with that, I'm going to have Mr. Broussard take the floor here. And as I said, I've now got Mr. Billy Broussard here standing beside me. Why don't you just go just a few moments to introduce yourself, Mr. Broussard?
Yes, my name is Billy Broussard. I was a contractor cleaning up Indian Bayou.
And, Mr. Broussard, I'm going to ask you just a few questions here and let you go ahead and explain. But like I said, we're going to focus in today just on his quest for these public records. I did mention about these threatening letters about turning him over to the FBI, but to a large extent, even more was done against you. Am I correct in that regard?
Oh, exactly. I asked for public records requests. One thing led to the other. Next thing you know, I'm being provided documents not to ask for the public records requests. And as you can see,
well, we're going to give you the link for an actual injunction. I'm not kidding you, folks. They drafted an injunction prohibiting this man not only from seeking further public records, but beyond that, even communicating with the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury and the Gravity District Drainage. And the injunction is somewhat ironic because I've contacted members of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury and they were unaware that there was any such restraining order. So how are they supposed to know not to speak with this gentleman if they're not aware of the injunction? So we're going to try to wrap this thing up and let Mr. Broussard just say just a little bit more, and then we're going to go ahead and consider this a wrap and that we will have introduced you to you. We're going to follow up subsequently as I delve more into this, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Broussard to you, and just, if you would, just wrap it up, Mr. Broussard, and just give a little overview of just what all you've been put through in terms of getting these records.
well, after asking for the records, at first I was told I would be provided the records. And then Mr. Stutz and Mr. Gabb got together and filed an injunctive relief.
And that's pretty, and he, even to this day, it is a standing order that says he cannot communicate. These are public officials that he has been told by this order he cannot communicate with. It's mind-boggling to me that a judge signed this, but he did. We're going to provide it to you. And so, folks, I want to thank you for having tuned into this Sound Off feature. As I said, we'll provide you with further details as we delve further into this. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the incredible resistance of a man that's been through a 10-year battle where he says he was not properly was not compensated for work that he did. So I guess the moral of that lesson is be very careful. These assurances that you can be provided by government officials. You don't necessarily know that you can take them to the bank, if you get my drift. Thank you so much. We look forward to bringing you another Sound Off feature in the very near future. Thank you so much.